Welcome back, anime fans, to Ghost in the Cloud, your anime podcast. My name is John. With me, as always, is my lovely co-host, Bridgette.
Hiya.
And this week, we are talking Howl's Moving Castle.
Finally!
Bridgette's all-time favorite. But before we get into it, as we do every week, we're going to do some anime news.
Anime news. So, Mary and the Witch's Flower is coming to select United States theaters. So, go online, check out your local theaters, and give them some love and enjoy Studio Ponuk's film. We already bought our tickets. We will be going, and it's on...
We should note it's on January 18th, so you do have some time, but it will be limited. So
and it's only that one day, so definitely want to see it. And then we will do an episode on it shortly after, and we will be going with Blake.
Friend of the podcast, Blake.
Yes.
Our spirit animal.
Spirit animal.
Niantic has announced that Pokemon Go will be getting an update this week, actually. So by the time you hear this, it may be a few days into the update. However, I think it's fun because I love this game. We're going to be getting 50 new Pokemon, originally found in the Hoenn region. Additionally, these new updates will also bring about new weather maps. What I mean by this is that when it's snowing out, you're going to get ice Pokemon.
Oh
when
my
it's
god, I've been
raining
saying
out,
this needs to happen.
You're going to get water Pokemon, and it's going to be very interesting, and I think it's going to make the game more entertaining.
More interactive.
I'm officially on the hype train for Pokemon Go. Go out and Pokemon Go.
Okay. You saying you're on the hype train is an understatement. I just need to share with everybody. John's not a morning person. Like, he'll sleep in if he can, on the weekends. It's time to relax. I'm the morning person. I'm up. I'm on the computer playing some Final Fantasy 14. And I look over my shoulder. John's got his coat and shoes on. He's running out the door. Something about catching a Pokemon. He'll be right back.
Well, Farfetch'd, who normally is in Asia only, was in the United States recently, so I had to do what I had to do. You know what I'm saying?
I thought I was still dreaming because I was just like, John's awake. He's got a coat on and shoes, and only for Pokemon Go.
I can only hope that when I am 80, we'll be in Generation 27 of Pokemon. There'll be like 4,000 of them, and I'll still be playing. That's my hope. On to our anime of the week, Howl's Moving Castle.
Woo! Okay, did I say this is my favorite movie of all time? Not just anime, favorite movie of all time. Of all the movies out there, this is my absolute favorite, and we picked this weekend to talk about it because it's the weekend before my birthday, so I figured it was appropriate.
Bridgette, why don't you tell us what this week's word of the week is?
The word of the week is castle, which is Shido.
Spelled S-H-I-R-O. We felt it was pretty appropriate.
Shido. Castle, and it does have a couple other meanings, but in this context, that's the meaning, so.
Howl's Moving Castle is a 2004 Japanese animated fantasy film written and directed by the one and only Hayao Miyazaki.
Woo!
The film is loosely based on the novel by British author Diane Wynne Jones. The film was produced by Toshio Suzuki, animated by Studio Ghibli, and distributed by Toho. And in the US, Disney currently has the rights. Actually, I think that may have transferred, but we'll get back to you on that.
We've been to Disney many times, and in Epcot, in like the Japan corner, there's a store, and it's full of Studio Ghibli merchandise, and I want it all.
Yes, she does. Always and always. Quick synopsis for the film. When an unconfident young woman is cursed with an old body by a spiteful witch, her only chance of breaking the spell lies with a self-indulgent, yet insecure young wizard and his companions in his legged walking castle.
Yeah, that's a very brief, very as like simple a synopsis as you're going to get, but it's much more interesting and involved than that.
Spoiler warning for Howl's Moving Castle. You should see this movie. It is a Studio Ghibli movie, and all of them are wonderful.
So the setting for this, it has a very 1800s, early 1900s, and it kind of has like a Europe feeling to it.
Would you say that most of Miyazaki's films have that kind of era to
it?
Like especially the ones we've done so far, they always seem like more on the verge of Industrial Revolution.
Miyazaki intended for the movie to be very anti-war. He identifies himself as a pacifist, but there are other very strong themes, like it's very big on like self-discovery and like compassion for others, even people that you might not agree with.
Don't judge a book by its cover.
Yes. And then of course the music is done by Joe Hisaishi, which we've said before is like the John Williams of the Western Hemisphere because he's amazing. He does a lot of the music for the Miyazaki films, so I just want to give him a little shout out because he's amazing. Rotten Tomatoes has given this like 87%, and it's gotten like about 1 million awards.
A million?
Give or take. And I had a lot of nominations. You know, some of them are American Film Festival Awards too. Before we get into the movie itself, I want to talk a little bit about the inspiration behind it. And I actually learned this recently as I was looking into the background of the film. And I was really surprised that I just found it really interesting. Miyazaki started this production in reaction to the Iraq War. So keep in mind the movie was produced and released in 2004. On the eve of the war, which as a pacifist, he had a very strong distaste for it. He decided to make this movie and had full intentions actually of the movie being unpopular in the United States, which I find really ironic because it was a really big hit here. Even though it was a hit, he wanted American viewers to at least feel some sense of unease because of its anti-war message.
I totally did not see that within the film.
I did not get that message at all. Like, I feel bad because...
He's very good at getting what he wants across, too. So I guess it's probably due to the era that the actual film itself is sort of set within.
Exactly. It's not a modern-day setting, so I didn't think of modern-day war. I actually was thinking about World War II, the bombing in England, because it looked like England. It's based on a novel of a British writer, and, you know, it kind of had me thinking about the beginning of the Narnia series, the first Narnia movie, The Lion and the Witch and the Wardrobe. The kids are running from bombs. They're running for a shelter in England, and that's the war I was thinking of. I didn't think of a modern day war, but I did get like an anti-war vibe. Because in the end, they did feel that war was pointless. I did get that part, but not the Iraq war part. Definitely didn't feel any unease watching this movie. I find it the most relaxing, most wonderful movie. Sorry, Miyazaki. And then another thing, like, Miyazaki is obsessed with, like, flying and, like, flying contraptions, and I get a lot of this in all the movies he makes. So there's a lot of flying by magic. There's a lot of flying with this steampunk like technology. You see like airships and hovercrafts and then Howl flies like as a bird. Everything is about like flying and like Kiki's Delivery Service did that. When you
think about that, flying in general just seems to be almost awe-inspiring.
Right? It's like the greatest thing ever. Another thing that Miyazaki was trying to like show us in this movie, in his words, he has a profound satisfaction with like modern life because he feels that technology has disconnected us from nature. And he tried to show that with like the battleships, how they're the most like high-tech contraption in the movie. They're supposed to look like very mechanical and cold. And then you have like Howl's like very organic castle. And that's supposed to represent the need to unite industrialism with nature. And I feel like that castle does unite the two of them because even though it's technology, it's moving with magic and it has like a life to it.
I love the design of Howl's castle because it's got things jetting out from it like in every sort of direction. Yeah. It's kind of like what I imagine the innards of like a clock to look like. It's got all these sort of shifting gears. It has a presence of its own. You look at it and it's kind of like terrifying but also inviting.
Yeah.
And the design of it is truly something.
Right. I mean, the first time I saw it, you can't really get an idea of if it's good or bad. But I mean, Sophie didn't bat an eye, which she just went right in. But it really does have like a feeling of its own life, even though it's Calcifer moving it begrudgingly.
We should say Calcifer is
the
this
best
magic flame that is essentially keeping the castle moving.
And the comic relief. In the beginning of this movie, we early on get introduced to both of the main characters, Howl and Sophie. Sophie being the focal point of the movie. But before we see Howl, we hear rumors in this town about how he is a wizard that steals and eats your heart. If you're a pretty girl, he'll eat your heart. Be careful. And then Sophie, she's this very shy, very introverted girl. She kind of just keeps her head down and just goes about her day. She's apparently working in this hat shop that used to belong to her father that passed. And she doesn't really think about what she wants in life or her future. She's just really going about her business. She doesn't seem to have any passion to her. She's just very quiet, very recluse. Meanwhile, her mother and her sister are off doing their own thing. They're very lively. And this girl is very plain in appearance and personality at first, Like she doesn't really seem to have much going for her. She calls herself plain. And then we get a glimpse of Howl. He definitely has this like pretty boy prep thing going on. Like he's got the big long hair, like golden hair.
He's got those dreamy eyes.
Yeah, those dreamy eyes. And he's dressed all fancy and When he has a run-in with Sophie, he even like says like, that's my girl. Like he has a very flirtatiousness to him. You know, you don't get any animosity towards him. You don't feel like he's a bad guy, but because he's flirtatious and you hear that rumor like, ooh, he steals your heart, you kind of get that like, maybe there's more to him that may not be good. He just seemed like very mature at first. Like very collective, very calm, very mature. Kind of swooped in there and helped Sophie in a tight situation. He didn't need to do that.
As the story progresses too, you definitely see how that changes.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how he's pretty much the opposite of that. Like he's kind of a mess.
The reverse. Someone who appears to have it all together clearly does not.
Yeah, I mean the whole reason why he's in the mess that he's in is because he's running and hiding from all of his problems. Poor Sophie gets a curse on her for really nothing that she did whatsoever. The Witch of the Waste, which is supposed to, right?
That's a great witch name.
The Witch of the
Waste.
She's supposed to be the villain of the movie. She's got a big crush on Howl, and out of sheer jealousy, she puts a curse on Sophie, making her look really old. Part of the curse is she can't tell anyone about it.
That's fucked up.
Yeah, and I'm sure anyone else would be freaking out. And she does have like a minute of freaking. She's like, you know what? I got this. You know, finally my old lady plain clothes finally suit me. She packs a bag of snacks and she heads for the hills to try to find the Witch of the Waste to get her youth back.
And even when she's thrown a curveball, she reacts to it. She doesn't sort of shy from it.
No, yeah, she didn't like curl up and cry. Like she's like, I'm gonna make the best of this. I'm gonna fix this. I'm gonna make her change me back. Even as an old lady, she went out and she did it all by herself. And she's like, well, you know what? I still have good health. I still have my teeth. Like I'm gonna get through this.
This follows Miyazaki's just wonderful way of creating these strong female characters.
He's so good at it too.
It's forced on Sophie that she kind of needs Howl, but you find that Howl needs her even more.
I mean, the way they ran into each other was actually by accident. Sophie's heading for the hills, looking for the Witch of the Waste. She runs into Turnip Head, which is like literally a scarecrow with a head of a turnip, and obviously it's got to be a person with a curse on them because scarecrows aren't living things, but this one's bouncing around and following her. And yeah, Turnip Head is pretty fantastic.
If a scarecrow was hopping around following you, I would be having nightmares.
Oh no, not like, from Turnip Head.
It doesn't matter how nice they look. Like Turnip Head's not a scary looking scarecrow. But if a scarecrow, let's say you're going down the street, look over, you see a scarecrow. Like on your way back, that scarecrow's in a different spot. It's going to freak you out.
But you know what? This is a world where magic is known and used on a daily basis. So when she encounters Turnip Head, she says, you obviously have some kind of curse on you, and I've had enough of witches and curses for one day, so why don't you find us a field and stand in it, is what she told him as she walked away. But Turnip Head found her a cane and found her a place to stay. He found the moving castle. So she's like, I think I know what this is. But she still went in. She wasn't afraid because the rumor was that Howl only eats the hearts of pretty girls. And she never considered herself pretty, and now she looks like an old woman. So she had nothing to fear.
It fits her personality.
Yeah, it really does. Like, she's very humble. She makes crafty hats for a living. You know, she's got old lady written all over her. So she goes in there and she meets Calcifer, which is probably my favorite character ever. I
would like to point out that the American version of this has some pretty big name actors tied to it. Billy Crystal Calcifer.
Yeah, Billy Crystal is Calcifer. The best. Christian Bale, Batman. Plays Howl.
2 weeks in a row. We're talking about Batman.
And then another one, which I didn't actually put two and two together until recently, but there's a young boy, Markle. He is voiced. I know. I like that. It's different.
A curse. Really, that name is a curse.
Okay, we have a difference of opinion, but it's like played by.
Hear me, all my Girl Meets World fans out there.
Was it Josh Hutcherson?
Josh Hutcherson, I think it is.
And he is now very well known for being PETA in the Hunger Games.
PETA Bread.
And mind you, he did the voice of Markle. He was much younger when he did it, but he did this voice acting 10 years before the making of the Hunger Game movies. So at the time, I didn't know who he was, so they didn't stick to memory. But it's kind of funny looking back at it now. So those are really big actors, really big names, and it could possibly be that this movie, I think it was the first Studio Ghibli movie that Disney owned the rights to the United States distribution, so I'm sure they had a hand in the big names for the American release. Thanks, Disney. Thanks again.
You know, that was about the time that Christian Bale was Batman. I believe that was
this was
around
before.
the same year.
So yeah.
Sophie moves in to the castle. She like tidies up things.
You know what? She finds her niche in there. Calcifer sees through her disguise, immediately knows that she's under a curse, even though Sophie can't talk about it. They kind of made an arrangement. Stick around, help me in my situation, because apparently Calcifer and Howl have a curse of their own. They'll help each other out if they can. And so Sophie tells Howl, Calcifer just hired me as your cleaning lady. You'd think that my first impression of Howl was he looked very clean. He looked very mature. The inside of the castle is a dump. And Sophie uses the word dump. Like, it was disgusting. Freaking mice and spiders in every corner. And as she was like cleaning, she's like, you better run now. Like, I'm coming for you. And she's very gung-ho. She's one of those people that definitely enjoys cleaning and organizing because she looks so satisfied after. And she keeps saying, like, one of the only things I can do is cook and clean, but I'm on it. You could see that she had such like a really good impression on Howl and Markle and Calcifer's life, like immediately improved it. You know, she kind of brought some like home to their space. Like she made the castle more homey.
I'd even say that first impressions are very prevalent in this movie. Howl, as you sort of watch him within his own comfort zone, within his own castle, you kind of get the feeling that he's depressed. Someone who can fly around the world is trapped in his own body, and he kind of hates himself for it. And you see Sophie break down those walls, and
like she kind of becomes like almost like a mother figure to Markle, who's a young boy studying magic under Howl. And speaking of Howl breaking down his walls, I think like the best scene when we're learning about his character is when he threw a temper tantrum. So apparently Sophie finally cleaned the bathroom, which was disgusting, and rearranged the shampoos and knickknacks in there, which apparently was his hair dyed and keep his hair beautiful blonde. Apparently his natural hair color is black. And he went to take a shower and he came back out and his hair was like neon orange. And she's like, Sophie, what did you do? And you finally, it's the first time you're seeing him like frazzled. And you see through the disguise and she's like, oh, what a lovely color. Like, looks great. Like, what's the big deal? Just dye it back. And he gets so depressed that he summons, like, the spirits of darkness. and Marco's like, oh, don't worry about it. I saw him do this once when a girl dumped him. And I was like, that's awesome. So you see this stand-up character just break down and literally throw a temper tantrum. At first, Sophie was freaked out, and then she's like, oh, this is ridiculous. And that's when she stepped in, cleaned him up, and that's when his hair finally turned to his natural color black. And he started to become more himself. He stopped trying to like pose as somebody else, which we kind of got that impression in the beginning. He wasn't himself. Like, once you get to see who he truly is, you realize that the whole time he wasn't true to himself until he met Sophie. That's how I interpret it. And then Sophie, she started out as this very meek character, and she became this like take charge woman. Like, she went in there, she cleaned up their home, she helped them accept who they are as people, and she made them more of a family. So, you know, any meekness that was there, any shyness, any insecurities she had in the beginning were gone, which was really nice. So it was a really nice development of these two main characters. The other characters didn't have any change. You got to know them, like Markle and Calcifer, along the way. And they were just great side characters. Turnip Head, not being able to speak, can't really contribute much other than a little comic relief. He does follow them throughout the course of the entire movie, like hopping along. Even Hal, when he sees them, he's like, oh, you definitely have a curse on you. Miyazaki's hit the point of this movie for him was to show that war is pointless.
With the way things are in the US, I recommend anime fans to rewatch this movie.
Now knowing what the movie was really about, current affairs, like I feel
it's sad that we've kind of rounded on that. Yeah. And it's been almost 15 years from that point. We still have a lot of sort of trudging through the darkness to get through. These films that he puts forward, they remain relevant because of this. And I think ultimately the biggest thing to take away is to be yourself and to accept one another as who they are.
Yeah.
Like, as who you are.
No one shows that better than Sophie.
Sophie and Howl, yeah. Like, Howl's understanding, like, that she accepts him for what he is.
And not even just Howl. Her obstacles in this journey was the Witch of the Waste, turning her into an old woman. You have this authority figure in the government, Madame Solomon, who orders that anyone who uses magic must fight in the war. At a time of war, if the king calls upon you, you have to show your face, you have to fight. And that is something that Hal is supposed to do, and it's one of the things that he's hiding from during this movie. He doesn't believe in war, he doesn't want to fight in the war, he thinks it's pointless. So you have these opponents that Sophie has to face, and yet by the end of this movie, she accepts them for who they are. She even takes in the Witch of the Waste. Her magic was stripped of her at the end, and she just became this senile old woman. And Sophie actually takes care of her. She literally makes sure she has a bed to sleep in. She spoon feeds her. Like,
Sophie is really a good representation of every regular person. Like us, we're kind of thrust into these things that governments and those who hold power decide upon. You can't run away from it all the time. And when you stand up, you have to be understanding of who you are in order to take on the challenges that are set before you.
Hal certainly tried to run. I mean, the whole movie, he was hiding from his duties. He was hiding from his feelings and past relationships. And Sophie was the one who stepped in and helped him face all of those fears. And she even stood up to Madame Solomon for him because he was too afraid to at first. That being said, she's pretty awesome. And I think they're both just amazing characters. I think Calcifer is hilarious.
Heen the dog is my favorite.
She keeps Solomon's dog Heen, which is really funny. And that's when you see Howl expand the castle because their family's growing, because they literally have the Witch of the Waste and Solomon's dog with them now. Like, that's just going to show like how accepting Sophie is, like compassionate for other people. The punchline of this movie, the whole time you're seeing these bombings. You're seeing Sophie's home getting bombed too by the end. And what's the point of this war? What started it? This war was started because a neighboring kingdom, their prince went missing. And rather than talking with their neighbor, they pointed fingers and started dropping bombs. And it's just been a back and forth instead of communicating, trying to work it out. But it turns out it's Turnip Head, which I thought was really funny. So Turnip Head, he had a spell cast on him. They allude to who it is. At the end of the movie, the Witch of the Waste is like a senile old woman by then. She's like, oh, I know what curse that is. A kiss from your true love breaks a spell. Well, she's probably the one who casted it on him. It's probably why she knows about it. She's very good at tricky casts and curses on people like she did to Sophie.
Bitch.
Yeah. So what happened was, at the very end of the movie, everything's kind of wrapping up. Everyone's happy. Sophie says, thank you, Turnip Head, and kisses him on the cheek. And he fell in love with Sophie over the course of the movie, which is why his curse was broken. He got a kiss from his true love. He turned into the prince that was missing from the neighboring country, and he went back home to end the war. So the whole time, the war, it really was pointless. And Madame Solomon, with her magic globe, she witnessed this scene. She said, let's put an end to this pointless war. That was Miyazaki's message. That much definitely gets across. Did I say this was my favorite movie? Sorry, I'm just so happy to talk about it.
So guys, what is your favorite part about this movie? That's really what we want to know. Normally we list where we can find this anime, but as per usual, Miyazaki movies, can't really find them.
Yeah, it's not too easy. They're not like streamable too much because they're not new. It's
recommended that you do go out and find them, maybe at your local library.
I want to say something. I was looking online. I Googled the Howl's Moving Castle for specific information. And what popped up was what theaters are playing it right now. There's actually a theater in New York City that is playing it in a day or two. Because, I mean, you figure in the big cities, you get a lot of theaters that specialize in like foreign films and other like more indie kind of productions. So there was a theater for indie or foreign films that's playing it tomorrow. And I thought that was pretty awesome that, you know, it's been 13 years and it's still playing in theaters. I mean,
it's still relevant.
Check it out.
It's still well loved.
If you live near a city that hasn't on the big screen, I would love to see it on the big screen. That's something that's got to happen. But if not, I mean, you can get the DVD set of the Miyazaki collection for really cheap.
To round out our episode, Cosplay Corner is of Lexi as Sophie.
She even made the hat with the ribbon and like the beads. Like you see Sophie made her very own hat in the beginning, and simple and cute to kind of like match her personality. And this girl, she made the hat, she had the dress, she did a great job, she had like the hair braid.
Lexi's tweet was from last year, so you can find her at @tiaramisu, TIARAMISU_. Check her out, it looks great. If you guys have any cosplays that you'd like to send us, we'd love to take a look. We'd love to let everybody know where they could find you. Definitely.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be for an anime that we've talked about. If you made an awesome costume and you want to share it with the world, we would love to see it. So next week, we are having an episode with a reoccurring guest with Cassandra. We are doing Parasite.
So this was a very interesting anime. Something you know what, we'll get into it next week.
Yeah, don't talk about it next week. But Cassandra's very excited to be back on. Don't forget, you can email us at gitcanime@gmail.com, and you can always find us on SoundCloud, Google+, iTunes, our social medias, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Search for Ghost in the Cloud. GITC Anime may not come up, so search for our full name, Ghost in the Cloud, an anime podcast, and we'll definitely pop up.
Yeah, I mean, either or. And then, of course, we have our Patreon account, which has all those awesome thingamajiggies. And we want to thank Anthony, of course, for creating our very catchy theme song.
Yes, and to all of our patrons.
Yes.
We really appreciate it, guys, and please reach out to us. Let us know how we can improve the show.
Yes, we want reviews.
It's late at night, so if we sound a little tired, that's
no,
probably why.
I'm ready to go. I need to watch more of the new season of Food Wars.
Which is really good.
Oh my god, I'm so excited.
Really good.
I'm glad we have
Get on it. Get on it.
Don't watch it hungry.
We'll see you next week, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Meow.